Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Hira Amir. I'm with OPWDD, and I'm here to welcome you to the second MSC information session on a series of sessions on People First Care Coordination. Once again, these info sessions are to assist MSCs with the transition to health homes under People First Care Coordination. On December 13, 2 weeks ago, we had our first informational session, and that is now available for viewing on our website. The PowerPoint for this informational session on what MSCs need to know is also posted on the website, so if you look at the blue link, that's where you can find that session. And actually, when you go to the link, there's a blue menu on the left-hand side that says Care Coordination, MSC Webinars, and that's where the first webinar is posted. In addition to that, we have the registration links available for the next two sessions that are going to take place in January. The next session will be on January 10th. It is called What is Care Coordination Health Home? And during that session, you will learn how a CCO provides care coordination services. You will learn what questions an MSC should ask the CCO and their current employer. And you will also hear the most current updated information on the transition process, including the application process. The registration link for the January 24th session on what is a life plan and how does it compare to an ISP is also available. So once again, you can register for the next two webinars on our website and also view the recorded webinar from 2 weeks ago. The other future sessions beyond January have been outlined, and they are listed in the transition plan on page 46. These topics are not final, and if you have suggestions for future topics, please email the Care Coordination email inbox. Lots of questions were raised in the last seminar, and all of those questions are currently being reviewed. We organized those questions into 4 different categories because there were a lot of trends and a lot of people were asking a lot of the same questions, and so we organized them into 4 different categories. A lot of the questions were referring to salary, to benefits information, and information about qualifications for being a care manager. And these are all questions that your CCOs will be addressing after the CCOs are announced, and we expect to make that announcement in February. Many questions that were asked have already been answered in the transition plan and the application for People First Care Coordination, or those answers can be found in the frequently asked questions document that is located at the link on your screen. We're going to be answering as many questions as possible in the time that we have for each session, but we're trying to address the questions that are related to the topic of the day. So questions that were asked that are related to the info session for that day will be answered during the info session. But again, all questions are being reviewed and appreciated, and they will help guide us while conducting future informational sessions.
Okay, good afternoon, everybody. This is Kate Bishop, and we'll move right into the presentation today. First, I want to thank you all for participating. Hope everyone had a lovely holiday weekend and continue to have a lovely holiday season and are dealing with the cold weather this week, which I know has been pretty all-consuming for some people. So today's focus is really on what is different about care management, how it's different from some of the work that you're doing today, and how it's similar to a lot of the work that you're doing today. And I think you'll find that there are many things that are very similar. I want to begin again with just a little bit of a focus on why we're talking about CCOs and with the development of CCOs, what the vision is for how we're moving forward as a system. And as you learned last time, and thank you very much for your ongoing participation, we're excited to have so many people participating in these information sessions and really do hope, as Hira said, that they're helpful to you all and to the system. So the CCOs are focused on strengthening the coordination role through the use of a stronger infrastructure around education and training, around the use of IT systems, and to empower the function. So it's to strengthen and empower the coordination function, recognizing the work, the commitment, the skill that you all bring to the table. We know that as a system, we need to make sure that the system is supporting that good quality work and improving even above and beyond what happens today as an overall coordination role within the system of support for people with developmental disabilities. There's also a significant focus on cross-systems, and you'll hear that through some of the example of in the discussion today. There's a team approach, and that's an important element to the health home and the care coordination organizations and the care management role. It's not an individual role just managing things as best as possible, but it's built within a strong team coordination role with the right practitioners involved and clinicians involved as needed for the person, the right experts available to help ensure that a person-centered planning process is strong and is in line with the person's strengths and needs. So today's session, we just reviewed some of the key points that were part of session 1, but our focus is really, again, on the care coordination, or the health home core service requirements, and we reviewed those in session 1, but want to go through them in more detail today. Again, you'll see that there's a lot of things that I'll mention that are things that you're familiar with already. It's not the role of the coordination role in and of itself is a role that exists in today's world. So the shift into a care management role and a health home focus will carry through and carry over many of the tasks and things that you do today that you're quite familiar with. But we're going to talk about some of the differences. We're working through, as we go through this session today, a particular person and some examples that person brings to the table. It's not meant to be all-inclusive to describe all of the elements of what a health home might deliver and the care manager might use, but it's just meant to be an example for your application so that you could kind of get a sense of a real-life circumstance as we talk about the specific areas of focus in today's session. So those specific things include comprehensive care management, care coordination and health promotion, comprehensive transitional care, individual and family support, referral to community and social support services, and the use of health information technology in order to link services. And again, as I mentioned, we're going to go through a specific example, but we also encourage you, and you'll hear this probably a few times in today's session, encourage you to look at the application where there are more details identified, to look at the draft transition plan, which gives more information, to continue to attend these sessions as well as any other sessions that are developed so that you are getting as much information as possible to be as successful and to have the transition from service coordination into the care management health home role as smooth as possible. So you'll be hearing that message pretty repeatedly because we're hoping that as you all are educated and understand and learn about the changes that are coming, that it'll help you all feel more confident and strong as we move into a new system. So what is comprehensive care management? Comprehensive care management consists of the same developmental disabilities coordination work that a service coordinator does today, with the addition of integrating primary, behavioral, and specialty health care and community supports and services in a way that addresses all of an individual's clinical needs. So it's really a lot of the same things that you're doing today, making those linkages with service providers in order to have the person-centered service plan implemented effectively, coordinating the people who are playing a role, providers and natural supports and circle of support, coordinating all of those things within the person's life to make sure that it's working for them, monitoring that plan, and then adjusting moving forward to make sure it's working effectively to meet the person's desired outcomes and their needs. So let's just now start with our person, Martin, who serves as an example for some of these tasks that are involved in the transition into the care management role in the health home service. So Martin has a developmental disability, but he also suffers from depression and was recently diagnosed with a diagnosis of type 2 diabetes. His care manager, Ashley, is working with Martin and his circle of support to develop a life plan that clearly identifies his needs and goals and helps him organize the provision of all needed services. So that should sound very, very familiar to you, and it's what you're doing now every day. The focus here that's a little bit different is in including supports and services that are HCBS waiver supports like Community Have. Martin also needs additional assistance with mental health clinicians and his medication. So part of the comprehensive care management function and those tasks would include ensuring that the mental health supports are occurring for Martin and that they're working effectively, and that you are ensuring that the supports and services that are in place are coordinated and connected in the best possible way to allow for Martin's best possible life outcomes through the supports and services that he's receiving. So the next area is care coordination and health promotion. The specific definition for that is to provide education and training to individuals and families on self-management techniques for their chronic conditions to promote wellness and maximize independent living skills. And again, this should sound pretty familiar to you, but some of the key terminologies here are self-management, which is really helping people take as much control as possible in how their supports and services are being delivered and how they're managing their own needs. To promote wellness, that's also another term that's used certainly within our system, but within the household model, promoting of wellness, and you'll see this in the application and you'll see this in the draft transition plan. The promotion of wellness really goes beyond just meeting health needs and really looks at the person holistically. It aligns with person-centered planning practices and looks at ways to have the person be as well and as capable of managing their own life, meeting their own life desires, meeting their own life outcomes that are most important to them through a wellness model. So it's not just focused on fixing a sickness, but how do we help a person proactively live a life that is promoting their wellness. And that's both health wellness, behavioral health wellness, and just general independent living skills and wellness as they move forward in their life goals. So back to Martin. The example of Martin. Martin was diagnosed again with a type 2 diabetes, and Ashley, as the care manager, provided Martin and his family information about the causes, treatments, and ways to prevent diabetes. Ashley works with Martin to make healthier decisions, such as taking walks when feeling bored or having an apple for a snack instead of potato chips. So again, the focus here is on health promotion and wellness. So when you see the work and the activities that Ashley undertakes, it's about how to make healthier life decisions, how to look for not just a medication regime that's going to help a person, help Martin manage his diabetes, but also to look at healthy life choices and education around options for healthy life choices that may reduce his risks associated with that condition and to improve his life outcomes through healthier living activities. So next is comprehensive transitional care, and that, for example, could include from an inpatient to a different community-based setting, and also includes ongoing and appropriate follow-up as that transition takes place. So specifically, comprehensive transitional care is managing of services for an individual and family or caregiver during a transition between levels of care. And probably one of the things that's most typical that you manage today in many regards is someone who's had a hospital stay and then needs to return to a community setting, whether it's the same setting with different supports or a new setting, and when that individual is making that transition, that you're ensuring that the right supports and services are in place for them. So the specific example again for Martin is that prior to Martin's discharge from a hospital stay, Ashley, as his care manager, coordinated the necessary follow-up treatment, appointments, and other services Martin needed, and ensured that he attended and adhered to the treatment regime. Now here again, some of these words, you know, we just read them and take some of these things for granted sometimes, but there's some pretty significant steps and supports identified within this example. So it's making sure that the appointments are, that the right appointments are set up as a follow-up to that transition out of a hospital stay, and making sure that the person is receiving those supports in a timely way and those appointments are happening in a timely way, because again, that's going to tie back to the issues of health and wellness and being preventative and responsive to supports or to needed services related to a new diagnosis relative to a hospital stay. And, you know, we have the example of Martin, but you also know there are a lot of people who have hospital stays that could relate to their behavioral health challenges. They could have hospital stays related to ongoing chronic conditions, not necessarily brand new things. And the goal is to ensure that the support and the services and the appointments associated with specialty providers for those supports and those support areas are managed in a timely way and are effective in meeting the person's needs. So in Martin's instance, it's ensuring that he is attending those appointments and adhering to the treatment regime. Now, I just want to make note, because knowing from many other trainings I've been involved in over the years, sometimes when people read this, they're questioning, does that mean that in every instance the service coordinator, the care manager will need to attend or be a participant in each of those appointments? And the answer would be no, that's not necessary, just like it is not today. Sometimes that would make sense, and the person who is in the care management role would be a participant in those appointments, but in many instances, it's just making sure that the right supports are in place, whether it's through service providers or it's through natural supports or it's the person's ability independently to attend to certain appointments, but it's the coordination role that's the key role in the care management function. And being sure that those appointments are in fact being kept, that the recommendations as a result of them are being implemented, and most importantly, that they're working, and that if there's a need for change or something different, that is followed up on. So Ashley, as the care manager in the example that we're given here, also communicated with all of Martin's providers and members of his care team about his transition and the treatment he required post-discharge. So again, you know, words that we take for granted, but what jumps out there is that communication role. And that is a critical and such an important role to care management as it is today in service coordination, but it is critical to be sure that in the functional role as a care manager, that you're making sure that all of those supports are really being developed and implemented through a network of providers and clinicians, but then also that the communication takes place to be sure that it is understood by all of those members of the support team and circle of support for the individual, for Martin in this instance, so that everyone's knowledgeable about what his needs are, what might have changed, and can be partners in ensuring that the supports and services that are in place for him are working effectively, and that he feels connected and empowered and educated about what is needed in his supports and services. Next is individual and family support, and this includes authorized representatives for people who have authorized representatives. And here the definition would be that you coordinate information and services to support individuals and family caregivers to maintain and promote quality of life. And this really gets at the focus that, you know, when you think about over the years, we've been working to build community capacity in so many ways as a system, and there's more opportunities for people to be supported in more integrated and community-focused settings. And in order to have people feel confident and comfortable and able to meet their life goals as well as their health and safety needs in a variety of settings, the coordination function really needs to help support the circle of support, the people who are supporting the individual. Very often that's a family member, and families, we heard frequently during the most recent residential request list survey that took place, many families say, you know, we love having a family member in our home and living with us. However, sometimes we need additional help in managing some of the day-to-day coordination needs for that individual, or we need an opportunity for respite support or evening support so that the person has more of an opportunity to engage in community-focused activities during different points in time during their day. So part of supporting an individual who's receiving supports and services in many, many instances is also supporting that family and supporting the network of support givers and caregivers so that they're feeling confident and comfortable and able to maintain the relationship and the support that they're providing to their family member. So again, back to our example with Martin. Martin's mother recently lost her job and was struggling to purchase enough food to feed Martin and his two siblings. So Ashley, as the care manager, provided Martin's mother with information on the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, or SNAP, and provided assistance in completing the application to apply for food assistance benefits. So again, it's not just looking at what does the individual need, but looking for a holistic way to support the natural supports in place for that particular person. And in this instance with Martin, one of the things that the family needed in order to be able to continue and manage the supports to Martin was assistance with getting benefits through the SNAP program so that their whole family could be supported in a more holistic way. So next is referral to community and social support services. And specifically, that includes providing information and assistance to refer individuals and family or caregivers to community-based resources. And this really aligns very much with the prior tasks and activities, but it's again about looking at holistic ways to ensure that the supports and services available to the broader community are available to people who are receiving supports and services and who have, you know, a diagnosis of developmental disabilities and are eligible for OPWDD services, but making sure that they have an opportunity to connect to other support systems that are available to anyone in the community, and that they are able to access those in an appropriate way to meet their needs. So this is really getting to some of those newer areas of cross-systems partnerships in referral to community and social support services. So let's get back to the example, to Martin's example. So Martin, feeling the stress of his mother's job loss, on top of his symptoms of depression, began using drugs and alcohol to cope with his feelings. So Ashley, as his care manager, provided Martin with information about drug addiction and assisted him to enroll in an outpatient treatment program and provided his family with additional resources to help them manage. So it's a great example with Martin to be able to apply that. And again, just as I said early on in this presentation, this isn't meant to be an all-inclusive example, just one example of a person who might be struggling in certain areas. You could apply the same kind of process and referral for situations such as mental health practitioners, You could have someone being engaged or connected to aging services in local communities, in hospice supports or palliative care supports for people who are at end-of-life stages. So those are just a couple other examples that people might benefit from as they look at community and social supports that are available to the broader public, and really starts to get at that cross-systems approach to helping people who are receiving supports through our system be able to access those supports that are available to others in a way that is responsive to their particular needs at that point in time in their life. And the intention is that through the CCO and the health home model, that helping you all as coordinators to be empowered and knowledgeable about the variety of community and social support systems in place for the broader community is something that is empowered and built on from what your current experience is. Many of these things happen today, so in many instances these things are already happening for a lot of people, but our goal in ensuring that we have a stronger infrastructure and a stronger focus on the coordination role is to be sure that where this is happening is available to people in a consistent way, and that everyone is knowledgeable or knows where to go within their team approach in a CCO to get the information that they need for the local communities in each area of the state, and can make these kinds of connections in a more consistent way and to allow people more access to these supports that are available to the broader public. And the last area of focus, and it's a biggie, is the use of health information technology to link services. So what does that mean? It means using available information systems to communicate with the care team, update the life plan, and conduct other health home processes. You will learn a lot more about the life plan, not in the next session, but in the one after that, where we're preparing for some more detailed information relative to the life plan and how it is similar to and different from the current ISP. But one of the key requirements in a health home and in a care management role is the use of that health information technology. And why that's so important, you've been hearing me talk now for probably longer than you want to, but about things like communication and coordination and connections with other community providers. And how do you achieve that and achieve it in the most efficient and effective way? Well, we believe, and most systems are seeing, that the use of health information technology to link some of those services together is really critical to make sure that that communication is happening in real time, the information is being shared consistently, the information is being collected and contained and organized in consistent ways, so that as a system, we all are able to look at the same information on each person receiving services and have a consistent set of information about that person's desired outcomes and goals in their life, as well as the health and behavioral health needs that they may have. So it's that holistic wellness-focused plan that is the life plan, but it's housed in a health information technology system so that information can be shared in real time and communication is enhanced and improved upon through the use of that health information technology. So let's get back to our example. Using information technology systems, Ashley was able to document and update Martin's life plan. As his wants and needs changed, well, during the course of this example time period, you can see that there was a great deal of change going on in Martin's life. And not only Martin's life, but his system of supports, which is providing him with the supports he needs to meet his life safeguard goals and his life outcomes, his personal goals. So the document, the life plan, would need to be updated to include all of those different sets of information and to be adjusted over time. His wants and needs and changes were also using it to communicate with his care team about Martin's treatment and progress. So just to reiterate, the idea of that real-time communication and real life updating things, so instead of just having an addendum that gets drafted on the bottom of an ISP and kind of sent out to the team, having an alert system, and I'm just using that as an example. Let's go back to Martin's hospitalization that occurred earlier on in the examples of what happened here in his life. He had a new diagnosis of diabetes, and he needed a hospital visit in order to stabilize related to that diagnosis and a change to some of his medication regime associated with that. So what happens now? We know sometimes people get that information communicated through a marble notebook. Sometimes they get a letter or note sent with the person in today program. Sometimes we miss that information. So just to bring the point home here, the use of information technology to share information in real time, to provide an alert to when things change that are really important for people to know right away so they can implement them, is a critical part of the health home model and the new care management role. So now I just want to give you a little update on where we are with the development of the potential CCO health homes and where we are as far as next steps. All regions have, from the applications that have been submitted, at least 2 CCOs in their region. 10 CCO applications were submitted, and those are now under review. The next steps that the state will be taking, and we're in this time period now, the first bullet on this slide, the applications are being reviewed and will be approved by the end of February to identify those successful CCO, emerging CCOs within the system. Between March and June, the health home and network partner readiness activities will be undertaken, and then on July 1st, 2018, the transition to the CCO health home care management for individuals with IDD will take place. So that's the same. These are no different timelines than you've been hearing in the last several presentations, but we're just keeping you up to date on exactly where we are in the process relative to the review and approval of the emerging CCOs. I'm just going to mention again, I've already said this, I think Hira said it and I said it, so you'll hear it one last time, but we encourage you to use these documents as a way to better educate yourself on the specific areas that are of greatest interest and greatest focus for the transition from MSC into the care management role. And that's the application that's been out and published. The links are now in this PowerPoint. The frequently asked questions document, which is helpful, and the draft transition plan into the 1115 waiver transition plan. So that information is also very helpful. So all these links are there. Some of them are very dense, but there's very, very good information in there. You can always go, there's been an advisory that's been issued that identifies some of the specific pages that we think would be of greatest interest to you as MSCs. All of it's important and good reading, but those areas are the areas where you can really focus your energies if you don't have time to look at everything. So with that, I'm going to end and see if we have any questions that have come in during the course of the presentation. And again, I thank you for your time today.
Okay, thanks, Kate. That was great. We have a few questions that came in. There was kind of a theme again, so I worked them all together so we could answer as many as we can. To what extent is the care manager working with an individual and working on the healthy decisions that we described in this example? What is the care manager's role? What is the experience expectation? Who else is involved in helping the individual, learn about some of these decisions and make the right choices, and, who else is part of that?
That's a great question, and I tried to give a little bit of an example in the course of the presentation around how some of these things are achieved, because it doesn't all fall directly to the care manager, but as the care manager is the overall coordinator of the development of the life plan in a person-centered way, and works to identify how that education will take place, and has a background and understanding of some of the health benefits and the preventative health care approaches and the health and wellness approaches in life. They can take the lead in identifying some of the areas of focus to achieve those outcomes. So just as a simple example, back to Martin and some of the healthy life decisions around diet, certainly as part of the person-centered planning process with the knowledge and understanding of some of the healthy living expectations that can help Martin have the best possible outcomes associated with his diabetes condition, the care manager can play a role in ensuring that discussion takes place as part of the planning for Martin. But the provision of ongoing nutritional support could take place through a linkage or connection to a nutritionist who could be providing some of that information. Maybe that's part of the CCO nutrition, the clinician available as part of the CCO team, but also for some ongoing nutritional consultation that could take place through a service provider in the system. So it can happen in a variety of ways. It's not any one way, but as the care manager, that coordination role of making sure that it is happening and is the most critical part, and that it's discussed and communicated across the providers or the people in Martin's life is really the critical function for the care manager.
Thanks, Kate. So then moving to the next piece of that, where will care managers receive the education and training and the tools needed to learn about all of these medical and how to provide assistance and medical diagnoses? And
right, that's a great question. And remember, one of the elements of building the stronger infrastructure around the care coordination organization is that there is a requirement for an interdisciplinary team approach, so that there are available clinicians, which could include nursing, which will include nursing, which would include nutritionists, which could include behavioral health professionals, and physicians, medical professionals. So the idea is not that everyone needs to have that kind of medical treatment planning involved in their person-centered plan development, but when it is needed, when there is the need for bringing that clinical support into the development of the person-centered plan, it is expected that that available resource and knowledge base is built into the overall CCO system. So that's one way that the care coordination role and the care management role is empowered through the new CCO organization. But in addition to that, connecting people, the question was around the education and training. So one of the other elements is to bring all of the current MSC staff, as well as new people who come on in care management roles, into a good understanding of health and behavioral health. We're working now to identify some of the required learning that will be built into the system for the new care managers or people transitioning into the care management role, and that includes adding more information and more educational opportunities for people who are in that role relative to health and behavioral health needs of individuals receiving services. So there'll be more information on that in the coming sessions. We'll be able to give more detailed information, but right now we've been working on developing learning objectives that the CCOs will need to achieve as they implement the CCO organization.
Thanks, Kate. We did get a couple questions about what type of care coordination is available to individuals who do not want a case manager this involved in their health planning, and is there an alternate coordination available? So
there is an opportunity if someone does not want the health home model, they can opt out of that and would be receiving what's called HCBS case management, and that would be more like what people are familiar with PCSS, that people have had over time, that is not as inclusive and doesn't include the health and behavioral health. I do want to reference that, well, health and behavioral health is an integral part of the health home model and needs to be looked at and coordinated as an overall package of services. It doesn't mean that for people who don't have significant health or behavioral health needs that it's the primary focus of the development of a support plan or a life plan for that person. So, you know, we're focusing today on some of these things to showcase some of the new elements and opportunities that can come through the health home. It's required as part of the health home model that these areas are focused on. However, for people who are generally healthy and don't have a lot of significant health and behavioral health challenges, the development of a life plan, the connection with typical providers is very similar to what you're doing today. I don't want people to think that the entire focus is on a health-related system model. But these are the new areas, so we wanted to showcase them in the examples today so that you could see that this is an area that is built into the health home model and the care management model in a way that expands on the current role. But if someone's needs are not significant in those areas, there would not be a tremendous amount of focus on those health and behavioral health areas, just as it is today if people are stable in their health and behavioral health needs.
I think that pretty much, there is one question about will there be any changes to where and when Medicaid billing is allowed, which I don't believe that there are any changes to that, but that question came up a few times in regards to the hospital and where MSCs are allowed to bill.
Okay.
You know, work and
I think
billing.
we'll have more detailed information on the actual service billing and some of the expectations for documentation and billing standards at a later date, so I really don't want to speak to that today. There will likely be certain changes from what you're familiar with, but we'll be walking through that and working through that in additional sessions at a different point in time. Hopefully that at least broadly answers your question, but we'll be focusing on that at a later date.
Thank you, Kate. I think that sums up the majority of the questions we received.
All right, well, thank you for your time today, and thank you for your questions, and I wish everyone a Happy New Year, and we'll be seeing you again in 2 weeks. All right, take care.
Thank you.